Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Ryan, and I'm joined with Connor. This is Voices from Corners Unknown. We're on our 14th episode, and in this episode, we've got another 3 albums to discuss. We've got some Sadgaze, shoegaze. We've also got some stoner, doomy, sludgy post-metal, and then we also have some, I don't know what you would call this one. It's kind of like Blackgaze, but it's quite post-metally, post-rock influenced as well. Pretty interesting amalgamation of sounds on this one. Probably, I think we talked about this a little bit too, right, man? It's probably going to be one of the more downtrodden, depressing episodes, I think, thus far.
But get ready to, be happy about life.
Yeah, exactly. But we got these 3 albums, and where do you wanna start the discussion, man?
Let's start with the stonery doom sludge.
Okay.
And they call it hash noise in some parts too.
Yes.
That is Constructs of Time by Matriarch.
Yes.
Which is a band from Denver, Colorado, and this album came out on July 13th, 2018.
Yep.
And it's pretty much 2 just massive tracks.
Yes.
One being, the sludgy doom vibe, and the other one's just like straight up strange noise,
right?
Static craziness,
right? Yeah, and we can talk a bit about the noise track if you want, but I was gonna say maybe we can focus more specifically on the Constructs of Time, the more instrumental stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a little easier to discuss, and I think on future episodes we'll definitely be talking about more noise, but for this episode, their Constructs of Time, the primary slab is a 33-minute long track, so I think that there's a lot to kind of dissect or at least discuss. And how did you stumble upon these guys? Because you suggested this one, right? You did some trolling on Bandcamp and located
it was another Bandcamp fucking experience of going through tons of stuff.
Right.
And these guys came up and I dug their album cover and I'm like, I wonder what they're like. And then I noticed they have a lot of humor just in like their descriptions of everything. Like you can tell these guys are like humorous stoners who love to make music, but
yes. I'm glad you picked up on that. Yeah.
Like their band names, their descriptions, they all like are, instead of guitars, it's 6-string drums and throat drums being the vocals.
Yes.
Drums, 4-string drums, 808 drums. They're like
right. I think it
some form of drums.
Yeah, I think it speaks to kind of the aesthetic or what they're going for sonically with how heavy and slow and doomy everything is. So everything's a drum. But yeah, I'm glad you picked up on some of their funny bits that they drop. I really.
Since they're stoners, the album costs $4.20.
Yes. So if you want to go support these guys, I recommend it. This is a pretty good, and I really enjoyed this. I'm glad you stumbled upon it, and it just continues to stagger me, like how many great bands just pour out of Denver or just Colorado in general. Because you got bands like Primitive Man and Dreadnought and all these really neat bands. I think Bandcamp actually ended up doing a feature on about 10 Colorado or Denver, Colorado-based bands, and these guys, Matriarch, were listed on there, which is nice to see.
Okay.
So yeah, like they've been getting some ground, and Colorado or Denver. I keep saying Colorado because I just don't visit the state, but they seem to just be churning out great band after great band. But so this is their, I guess, their second release technically. This is, I don't know if you could call this like their first EP, but it's definitely like their second release. I think their other one came out April of 2015. And that was a pretty long track. I think it was 2 tracks, and they were both very long as well. We could probably check that really quick, but 2 really lengthy tracks. But yeah, do you want to dive a bit in? You want to start us off on this?
So, well, first off, one thing I noticed, like in the album cover, and then in the like description on the Bandcamp, is they have like the whole life, herbs, knowledge, fungi, influence, drink, death, crystals, and then like they kind of have these little symbols on the album,
right,
that represent those things. And then what I got out of like the music itself is that like some weird celestial like drug gods or something. And yeah, so that sets like an interesting background to the music itself.
Right.
And then you dive into the actual music.
Yes.
And it's the first track is 33 minutes and 23 seconds long.
Right.
But it's another one of those things where like there is different sounds throughout this track that you could say could be broken up into different songs.
Yeah, I feel like that there is it almost feels like it was two tracks kind of sutured together in one part. I think about what it was like 13 and a half minutes and 14 minutes. There's this passage where it kind of falls silent and goes into this kind of like, I don't know if it was a field recording or just like an extra recording or a sound sample, and it kind of falls silent, and then it almost like just kicks back up into a new section instantaneously. So it's almost like two big tracks kind of conjoined with a sound sample of some sort. I don't know if that's the band kind of mumbling something or if it's an actual.
Was weird.
Yeah, it's hard to. I couldn't pick it up. The number of times I listened to it, I wasn't able to like fully grasp the sentence. But but yeah, what'd you think of the opening of it, or like the first, 13, 14-ish minutes, the first slab?
I enjoyed it. It was just crazy, kind of static grain, ambient intro.
Yes.
And then here comes the guitar drums and the drums and the vocal drums, as they would say.
Right.
And super sludgy and doom-like. And then it kind of like, it kind of goes on and on and on, kind of like, I don't know.
It kind of
just space out and get all stonery, like mentally, even about.
Yeah, it kind of just drills one like single riff. It just kind of drills it into the back of your skull, just like never ending, almost like it kind of creates its own. It almost creates kind of like a meditative feel to it, or I don't know, just kind of like this crushing repetitiveness. And that's not to say that it stagnates. It's very, like it just kind of keeps hitting you over and over again, and it just kind of builds an intensity from it. I think it's a great exercise in repetition.
And then you have kind of these like blackened death metal vocals, pretty harsh,
right?
And if you actually look at their lyrics, it's what it kind of is depicted on the album cover, but you kind of get more of an idea of what it is.
Right.
Like, they're talking about take the god drugs, merge with constructs, commune with time.
Right.
And it just keeps repeating strange stuff like that throughout the kind of two parts of the track.
Yes. Yeah, it's great stuff. When I listened to this, I kind of imagined, I just imagined these four dudes, and I kind of imagined, instead of an asteroid, like a hashteroid or something, kind of like falling to Earth and like just
nugget.
Like I just imagine these guys, like this hashteroid falls to Earth and like lands somewhere near Denver, and like they just like go out to go like extract the buds from like the crater that's left in its wake or something. Like I just get like this. It's just so stonery, it's so heavy, and I couldn't think of a better way to describe it, because it's just like this meteoric slamming riff, like it just pounds you in the teeth. But I would say like the first 13-ish minutes, like it is like they definitely kind of splotch in some nice there's some nice little bits. About 9.5 minutes in, there's this little respite where it kind of strips. It to me, it felt like the instruments kind of got a little more barren, and it became almost even slower. Like they make sure that the riff isn't the only thing continually pummeling you. Like they kind of work in these little moments to keep it palpable. But I would say post that 13.5 minute mark, kind of after you start going into the longer half of this, it starts to, I found that side to be more engaging in a way, just because I really like the, well, obviously I like it when the tempo picks up. There's there's 1 minute at about like 17.5 minutes in where it kicks up the pace, and it kind of gets a more headbangy, kind of a little more groovy. And then when that section ends, you get this, it just feels like more spaced out psyche, like psychedelic almost, like it kind of has like this floaty, like you're kind of like floating in this haze of weed smoke or something like that. I don't know. Oh
my god, dude! I literally in my notes just exactly what I'm picturing. I could just see the guys, just, whittling away at the guitars, and you just see like a hazy smoke, floating through like the venue of the whatever show they're playing at.
Right, yeah.
And everybody's just kind of spacing out, staring at their guitar, like, whoa.
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely that's probably my favorite bit, at least in the entirety of the track. If we were to if I were to, kind of discuss the piece that I liked the most, and yeah, I just found like that guitar work to be pretty ethereal and delicate, and the drums kind of hold the ground, and I think one of the guitars is kind of playing in tandem with it, or the bass is going along, and it kind of plods and holds that doomy foundation. But then there's just this, another guitar is kind of just doing these neat little movements, and it's just kind of creating this this nice aura, this kind of trippy atmosphere kind of floating above the doom foundation. And that carries out most of the longer half. Longer half, shorter half, they should be, they're equal, but you know what I mean, like the last, 17-ish minutes of the track. But
yeah, I would have to agree with liking that part the most too. Like now I can't stop picturing like this a band floating on a floating, little piece of weed.
Right.
And like the actual cheesy green screen, video of what it would look like.
Exactly, yeah. And I think what really works well on the other half too is when you kind of get those, you have that airy foundation, or kind of like that aura floating around, and then near the end of the track, like the last 6 minutes, it kind of solidifies into the super stonery, crunchy doom again, and it kind of hits you really hard, because it's just, you kind of get into this weird trance, like it just feels meditative, and you just feel like peaceful, and then it just kind of drops you back down into just this sludgy stoneriness. It's great.
I described it as being fully overwhelmed by the high of their music.
Yes.
They definitely land that stoner feel for sure.
Right. Yeah, no, I really enjoy this, and it also wraps up. They do a nice job bookending this large track with some, as they describe it, hash noise. It's almost like harsh noise, but hash noise, you get it. But it's kind of like a nice way to bookend it. And yeah, I really enjoyed this track, and I think that they're doing a vinyl release of this as well. Like they're not doing like a double LP with this track and the noise track. It's just this 33-minute track. So they're kind of doing this, I think that the noise track is more of a bonus. So for folks who are just more interested in, say, the stoner doom sludge stuff, you can just listen to the first track. But if you're also into noise, that is there and available, and it's almost 18 minutes of it, which is nice. Did you want to talk about, well, before I get too ahead of myself, were there other bits you wanted to talk about on the primary track or Constructs of Time specifically?
No, you went beyond and above describing that better than I could have. But, yeah.
Okay.
We can talk a little bit about the hash noise bonus track, Transmissions of Time.
Yeah. I didn't want to squander all your words on that. Hopefully, I didn't take too much piss out of you on that.
Oh no, dude, it's good. But yeah, that hash noise track. At first, like, cause I'm not too big on like just harsh noise.
Yep, I know you're not.
Kind of started to grow on me. There's like the beginning's kind of the different types of weird staticky and feedback and drone ups and downs. And I'm like, maybe if I was high, I could appreciate this more. But
right.
Then you kind of get some cool like weird underlayers, and then weird metallic banging kind of is in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say about 8 minutes in, you get kind of more dynamic sounds with like a gnarly high pitched sound.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, this kind of reminds me of a blender and a buzzer and a vacuum all at once.
Yes. Yeah, or like bong water just kind of getting filtrated through the I don't know how they could have made all the sounds on this thing. Or if it was just a bunch of like pedals, and I really don't know what kind of tech they used to make this. But yeah, I know you're not too into the noise stuff. When you sent this to me and I listened to Constructs of Time, I was like, oh man, this is a long ass album. But then when I got into Transmissions of Time and I realized it was just noise, I'm like, oh, Connor's there's no way you're gonna dig this shit. Like I just had a feeling, but it sounds like it's not. It didn't treat you too poorly, I think.
No. I mean, the first half I was kind of like, okay, I'm kind of over it. But then the second half,
yes,
definitely kind of refreshed it.
Sure.
And made it more interesting.
Well, yeah.
And then towards the end, it gets more like, I don't know, evil sounding. But then you get this cool, like, kind of electronic pulse.
Yeah.
Kind of sci-fi stonery again.
Sure, yeah. No, I think it's a nice juxtaposition. It's kind of like it's harsh noise, so it's not really like a good come down from, say, the stoner stuff, because it's still harsh, but it's kind of like a nice after buzz or something. If you wanted to like think of it that way, it's kind of like a nice complement to the stoner doom, as opposed to just listening to another 18 minutes of that. It's like, I think it serves as like a nice palate cleanser, or just kind of a nice a compliment, I guess, as I've already said, to this, just the harsh noise. I think it's kind of a nice way to cap the record off, or just provide some extra listening.
Right.
But, yeah. So I think going forward we'll probably try and incorporate a bit more noise discussion. This one I intently focused more on absorbing the like the stoner doom stuff on this effort, but going forward when we talk about, I think on the next episode I'm going to subject you to some power electronics. So not sure.
I'll be ready for it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you're going to fare, but hopefully it'll be fun. But would you recommend folks check this one out? What do you think overall?
Mm-hmm. It was definitely a cool one. They totally nail what they're going for, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Making this sludgy doom stoner music.
Yeah.
And then adding the hash noise bonus track.
Yeah, and I think that's a nice way to, you can get some people in that way at least. You can say, we have two sides, two kind of different spectrums of music to offer you folks. So if you're into more noise, you can go listen to the Transmissions of Time, and maybe it'll get you into their stoner doom stuff, or vice versa. Maybe you like stoner doom and it gets you into harsh noise as a result.
Yeah.
Now, which one do you want to talk about next, man?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
How about we go with Mourning by Carl Jean?
Okay.
We'll get the saddest part of this.
Yes.
We can end on a slightly happier note.
Yeah, this is a very hefty but very brief album. So this is a solo project, and it's helmed by Carl Smith. I believe the project was birthed or founded about late 2012. and I sort of describe them as Sadgaze. It's not a genre descriptor I'm terribly familiar with, but that's kind of how Carl describes it, so I'm using that here. But I would say it's like very minimalistic in a sense, guitar work, and then a lot of ambience, a lot of kind of depressive atmospheres. And this album recounts his feelings during the first month following the suicide of his mother. So it is quite a heavy album to listen to. It kind of reminds me some of just the sentiment of, I don't know if you've ever listened to Mount Eerie, but Mount Eerie had an album that came out, I believe it was last year, and that was kind of a very depressing, not like sonically they don't sound really that similar, but kind of the sentiment of writing something post, somebody's passing, post somebody's departure from the earth, and it just had like this rawness to it, and that's very much felt in this record. So I hope I didn't bum you out too much with this one, because I knew it was going to be a difficult listen. But yeah, what'd you think of this one, man?
It was a bummer, but it is beautiful, heartfelt music.
Yes.
I would say it really encompasses how this guy felt with his, depression and
right.
anger and just overall frustration of losing somebody so close to you.
Right.
And it was just kind of cool how he's so open about it, and he's willing to kind of share how he felt, and like literally recordings.
Yes.
Of actual events, like the funeral and the officer reading the suicide note that was retrieved. Yeah. I was like, whoa, that's some heavy emotional stuff right there.
Right, yeah, that is something that I'll say out the gate too when I listen to this after I heard that. So the last most track, so that this whole album kind of moves relatively quickly, or it kind of diaries each day, and they're all like relatively with it, they're all pretty close to one another, like August 23rd, 24th, 28th, like they kind of chronologize the days. I don't know if these were the days that he recorded them, or it's probably like the moment in time that he was feeling what he was feeling. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, the last most track, the Suicide Note one, after listening to that once, I don't think I could listen to it again, frankly, because it was just so depressing. It's one of those things where I think even the funeral service bummed me out a decent bit too. Just the tracks that they're the funeral service of track 5 and Suicide Note track 7. Those are both tracks that are very, it's just kind of raw recordings from his life, and they are very I found them pretty hard to listen to, especially the Suicide Note bit, and I think it's one of those things where it's very emotional, and after listening to it I was like, I don't think I could ever listen to that again. And that's not to say it's a bad thing, it's just so emotionally moving and kind of it's just depressing and hard to listen to. So
definitely.
But sprinkled throughout, there are 5 other tracks, I believe. 5 other tracks. And Mourning, so the opening track, Mourning, is more just, I think there's just a voice recording kind of murmuring throughout the background, and it's mostly just ambient, but there's a small voice recording that kind of comes in and out. It's a little difficult to piece everything together, but it sounds like it kind of loops and repeats.
Yeah, it's definitely a loop.
Yes. But, do you want to get into specific tracks, or do you want to select one or two that you want to discuss in depth?
We could select one or two.
Yeah, which one are you? Yeah, which one?
We can dive into Bluing.
Yeah.
Which is when you really get to hear this guy's really soft spoken, depressive vocals.
Yeah.
But they're just beautiful. Like,
yeah.
You can tell how much heart he put into this, and I'm not really familiar with the genre. Like, I never really listened to shoegaze, let alone this so-called sadgaze.
Sure.
But yeah, you get his vocals over this atmospheric backdrop and this soft guitar melody. And then towards the beginning, you kind of have his vocals mixed with kind of like these female backup vocals.
Yeah, I'm glad that you picked up on that. I wasn't sure if I was hearing double or something like that. I couldn't tell. My ears perked up exactly at what you were just describing. I don't know if there were there extra vocals layered in there.
I think I was hearing that. I kind of maybe thought like, oh, maybe this is supposed to represent his mother singing with him. But I could just be reading into that. It could not be true at all. But
sure.
Yeah, lyrically, I would say a lot of these tracks stand out.
Yes.
Like, it's pretty emotional stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and this one, the 3 days have passed since your death. I am exhausted and in pain. I can't sleep at night at the thought of you struggling.
Right. Right.
Some heavy stuff.
Yeah, I really like throughout this album, and this track is a great example of it, just how the guitar playing is just very straightforward, and like kind of the ambience that swells and consumes it is, just the way it creates this really emotional foundation is very it's very engaging in it. I don't know, when I listen to this, it's extremely depressing, but somehow this like these ambient undercurrents almost make me feel I don't know, it just has like this infinitely deep feeling that I can never describe that well when it comes to ambient, but like it just has like this energy to it. It's just very heartfelt. Yeah, and it's a nice. I mean, it makes the album more engaging as well. As opposed to it just being strictly like somebody playing guitar. The ambience kind of adds this really dense layer to the overall sound. It actually reminds me a bit of not to continue throwing out comparisons, but Sana Abro, he does he does like dark ambient, and it's purely. There are no lyrics per se, but it's kind of the same thing where he creates these soundscapes with just a guitar, and it sounds relatively similar, and it kind of has, this depressed atmosphere. And as soon as I heard that in this record by Carl, I was just like instantly hooked by it.
Yeah, I think that's what hooked me too.
Yeah.
And that actual like ambient sound, like specifically, kind of makes me think back to my own childhood, like really early memories for some strange reason.
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't know what the sound is, but it just makes me reflect back on those times.
Is that weird thing you texted me about earlier when you said you had some strange bit or like some strange thought, or is this related to the next album coming up?
No, that was just this one. It was kind of like last night I was driving back from working on a short film in San Francisco, and I was kind of like on 19th Avenue, and there's like the BART train stations and like the track that goes along like the road.
Right.
And it was super misty and gloomy, like, usually how San Francisco is.
Oh.
And it kind of diffused all the lights and just expanded all the lights I was seeing, and they kind of trailed off, and you could see the mist like moving in the street lights as you drove by, and it was just really depressing while listening to this music.
Right. It sounds like a perfect setting, or that sounds like
it worked.
Yeah, that almost sounds like a perfect kind of like a moment in time, or what, like that kind of a setting, or that kind of a like a scenery. It sounds like that pairs extremely well with what it sounds like. Well. Yeah.
It really just kind of, I really connected with the music he was making.
Right.
Not necessarily what the content's about, but just the sound.
Yes, and I think that's what makes this so engaging too. The lyrics are very heartfelt, and they're very just very harrowing, very just very raw. And I'm just glad that Carl's able to express himself the way he does. I don't know how many artists I've stumbled upon where while listening, to a record where I can just feel that much emotion pouring out.
Yeah. It is crazy.
Yeah.
But I would say my favorite track was the Abode.
Yeah, that's the one I marked down as my favorite as well, for sure.
The fourth track.
Yeah.
It kind of follows the same feel of all the other music, but yeah, there's this beautiful guitar like melody, and you have the weird kind of slow shoegaze type stuff again, the ambience, and yeah, the lyrics paints this picture that's just whoa.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's almost so simple in a like I don't want to make it sound like it's simple, but like the way, like the lyric that he kind of repeats in part of the song where he says waking up in this abode is hell on earth, and it's just kind of enunciate, the way it just kind of pronounced, like, I don't know, just thinking about living in a home you grew up in your entire life, or you've lived in with somebody you've loved for your entire life, and then once they pass, it's just like that place is completely tarnished, or it's just kind of, you know what I mean? Like it just kind of turns into this miasma, and it's just such a, it's such a depressing thought. And then, pairing that with the deeply melancholic guitar melody, which is also beautiful at the same time. I found that to be my favorite track for sure.
It was a good one. But yeah, back to those recordings of the actual events.
Right.
I think I listened to both of them 1.5 times.
And then you just could not get through it.
I couldn't get through it again, especially track 7.
Mm-hmm.
It's brutal. Just hearing him breaking down and crying during specific parts that really affected him. And it's just the droney ambience. It kind of represented his frustration and anger, I feel like, as he's listening to this note.
Yeah, it definitely takes a bit of a turn when you listen to tracks 1 through 6. There's kind of this dreamlike, almost like this surrealness to it, where it just doesn't feel like you're really existing. Like it just feels like you're in a different plane of existence. And then once you get to that 7th track, it almost takes on like a sludgy drone vibe. Like it's just like this. It's like this dark, creaking kind of, bellowing. It's just kind of, it's just dark and kind of gritty. And as the note is kind of read out over it, it still just surprises me. It just kind of astonishes me how open he is to be able, like, to willingly share this feeling and this recording with the world. It's pretty profound, I think.
Yeah. I hope it almost like maybe him sharing this kind of was a nice way to, deal with the situation,
right,
and get it off his chest in a way.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I think that this will be going forward. I don't know what plans he has in the future, but it's definitely kept it got me very invested in this album of his. Just listening to, like, just the initial impact of it was so great. So I'm looking forward to, whatever subsequent releases, and I definitely need to go back and listen through some of his older releases. I have not given it nearly enough time. And I also have to just thank Cam of Apostle. You remember we talked about their album a while ago. He actually sent me this record.
Oh wow! Really?
Yeah. I would not have found this without him. I don't think he sent this along to me, a month-ish ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and he just passed it along. And I think he caught Carl live somewhere, or he's friends with him, or acquaintances in some sense, I believe. But he passed it along to me, so I'm glad that we were able to talk about this. But I highly recommend folks check this one out. It is very emotionally draining, but I find it to be really beautiful and moving. A lot to digest, a lot to take in. And I think it also, if you're into guitar work, that can be, a hook for you. But if you're also just into a really ambient drenched songs as well, you could also get into it that way. I think it kind of has like a nice dual purpose, or it kind of it kind of balances between these different genres that I think can appeal to a variety of folks.
Yeah, and just his vocals too.
Yes,
they're outstanding.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the lyrics and their delivery as well. Would you recommend folks check this one out too?
Oh yeah, it's definitely one of the most brutally emotional things I've listened to in my life.
Yes,
but it was like you said, it was so moving that I recommend it to people who are into this type of music.
Yes, yeah, and even if it's something that sounds like it would be depressing at the outset, just based on the descriptions, I think it's one of those records that I appreciate. Like, even though I had a hard time going back to listen to, the last most track, I still appreciate just the rawness of it, and it's challenging in a sense, in that it makes you feel, because there's so many albums, you can mull through day to day, or that I mull through day to day, and I get no emotional connection or no emotional resonation from it. And this one hit such a deep nerve. And I think that's, a very compelling component of music. And even if it makes you nervous thinking about how it can make you feel, I think it's important to listen to it. I've not listened to something this raw in quite some time. So. All right, and that leaves us with our last album, Anassa, by Message in a Cloud. And this band is a 5-piece from Athens, Greece. And I believe this project was originally constructed as kind of the idea of Nikos, Lokopoulos. I'm so sorry.
That's intense.
Yeah, Lukopoulos.
For our
Nikos. Let's just call him Nikos or Nico.
There you go.
Yeah, and so this is a project founded by one individual, and I believe he debuted this project back in October 2014. But this album, Anassa, I believe is kind of the fully realized. He kind of recruited 4 new people, and this is like their first full length, or kind of like the first album as an entire unit, like a whole 5-piece. So Nico's turned it into a full project, not just a solo project. Is there any other background information you have on these guys that I may have glazed over, or these folks?
Nah, you definitely covered all of it.
Okay.
But, yeah. I guess we'll dive into the music.
Yeah, what'd you think of this one?
Oh, it was beautiful. I used to be, way more into post-rock and kind of the post-metal stuff, I would say, years ago. And I don't listen to it as much. Yeah, but this has so many different elements to it that it really warranted many listens.
Yeah, so this album is, as you said, it's a very intriguing listen, because at first on first pass, almost, for the first few songs, I took away mostly like post-rock, post-metal-ish vibes, but as I listened to it more, there are definitely like those black metal elements that permeate throughout, but it's just not as on the nose, because I know when we started this episode, I kind of described it as Blackgaze, and I know that that's kind of a hot button for some people, because you think of the more popular Blackgaze bands, and it's kind of divisive for some folks, I think. But this album, I don't know, I found this to be really heavy on the post and a little less on the metal, but
I got that too.
I think that it served it or it serves the record to its benefit, because as you said, you're not huge on, or you haven't been listening like the post stuff as much, and neither have I. But this kind of was a nice, this was like a nice way to kind of get back into it almost, because I'm usually not super into post rock, or at least anymore, just because it usually kind of, I find it a little boring nowadays. But the way that they pull it off here, you know, a lot of it is post, but then when they kind of roll in the metal aspects, it kind of comes in a bit unexpectedly, and then they juxtapose it with some beautiful crescendos and such, and it doesn't rely on one paradigm of music entirely. Like, they mix it up so much throughout that it makes it for a very intriguing listen.
Yeah, the way they describe it themselves, they say, Message in a Cloud's debut 6-track instrumental album is driven mostly by slow, atmospheric parts blended in with massive reverb sections, electronic elements, and some blast beat outbursts. The blast beat outbursts definitely were the parts that caught me off guard and kept me intrigued.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it so great. When the blast beat parts come in, they seem to just kind of come out of left field. It's almost like you forget you're listening to a metal record in some passages. It's kind of remarkable, frankly, that they pull it off the way they do. I would say, talking about, I don't know where you'd wanna talk, like, or where you'd wanna start. Do you have a specific track you wanna hit on?
Well, this is another one where feel like we shouldn't talk about every single one, but if we were to start, I would go with Apafina.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I was gonna say we could start with that track, because the opening track is a bit, I would say it's relatively standard in the way it kind of sets the stage with kind of the post rock instrumental bass, and this is an instrumental band as well, just to note. But yeah, the second track is where where the dynamics start to kind of play off of each other, and it kind of becomes its own beast. But yeah, what about that track do you like, or what about that one?
Well, I like how it starts off with that upbeat, kind of nice, peaceful, melodic post-rock metal instrumentals, and then there's a lot of catchy guitar melodies. You know, I'm always about that. And
there's also like there's a distinct kind of warmth that exudes from it as well. You know, it kind of has like this nice warm atmosphere pouring from it. I don't know if you feel that way, but I kind of liked that feeling. It's kind of a nice, I don't know, warm, but it's not like cheesy like I usually get when I listen to post music. You know, like post rock, I usually kind of get turned off by some of the, I don't know, sometimes it gets a little too overt for me, the emotions, but I think that they balance it nicely.
Yeah. One of the main melodies actually reminded me of like the main score in I don't know if you've watched it, the HBO series The Leftovers.
No, but I heard of that, I believe. I never saw it. I've heard good things, but I'm not aware of it.
The score is great.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I loved it. Actually, I think I own the whole score of at least one of the
seasons. Really? Oh, interesting. Yeah. But that score reminds you, or this record reminds you of it?
At least that second track, there's a melody in there that sounds incredibly similar.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, and I really like the, there's a little sound sample that comes in partway through the track, and I guess, I wasn't able to figure out exactly where it came from or who recorded it, but yeah, it kind of talks about the, what back in Galileo's day, with like people not believing the earth was round because the church told them to, etc., and it kind of, it almost kind of like rambles, like the guy sounds like he's kind of rambling a little bit, and then this nice guitar kind of starts coming in as the sample ends, and I think one of my favorite aspects of this whole record is just the bass tone. The bass tone is it's so juicy, like it just is so omnipresent, like you hear that every note it plays, you hear it, and it's just beautiful the way it kind of just either follows the guitar or it's just the thumping of it. It's perfect.
In my notes, I literally have it in capitals. That cool ass bass line meandering with the guitars.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and at the end of that track, it has like this nice, the guitars kind of create this nice shimmering wall of ambience, and I think that's where you start to see some of the black metal coming through, kind of like that tremolo picking, and it kind of creates this, like, kind of like this emotional wash of guitars. You know, it kind of has this like black metal-y vibe to it. Like, it just has these, I don't know, like this nice delicate atmosphere to it. But I would say the third track probably has to be my favorite one. I think the Need and the Needle. I don't know what you thought of that one. You have any sentiments on that?
I like that one too. My first little note is there's so much beauty in just 6 minutes, or a little over 6 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool melodies in it, and just those epic kind of moments that you have. But it's not like overdone epic. It's just nice and good.
Yeah, what I liked about this track was almost in the beginning, and see, this is where it gets a little difficult to talk about some music sometimes, because I can use, you know, album descriptors or like just genre descriptors, and I'll get them wrong. But because I'm just not super familiar with it, but the opening of this track almost kind of gave me like this nice dream, kind of, I don't know if poppy is the right word, but it definitely had like this, like there was like a bit of like this jovialness to it. Like, it kind of had like this nice warmth, like kind of like this upbeat feeling coming from it, and then it floats into this little electronic passage, which I think is a nice, they kind of sprinkle those moments throughout the record. They're kind of like these electronic drum beats, kind of like these bass kicks, what have you. Yeah, and they're like nice little ways that just kind of mix up the instrumentation, but it flows from that electronic passage into kind of like this black metal bit, and that's where it took me by surprise. It was not overt in the first couple tracks, or, you know, really wasn't there, and like this black metal blast beat comes, you know, just kind of plotting in, and it took me by surprise when I was listening to it. And then the way the guitar kind of starts soaring over the top of it, and it kind of crescendos into this really beautiful, euphoric, this riff. It just has like this epic melody to it. But it, you know, like the main issue I usually have with maybe not even post metal, just like post rock in general, is that the structure becomes so formulaic to me. And for whatever reason, the way that they pulled this track off, it has that crescendo, but it just hits so hard. And it's probably because the tracks leading up to it they're not structured identically. You know, they're kind of their own tracks. And this is like the one track where I think the crescendo is, I think that it does appear a little bit later on in, say, Under the Blanket, which is the fifth track, but the way that it kind of builds into this one, it just it's so well done.
I found it.
Yeah, like there's just this beauty in it, and it's just one of those things where I was like, I don't think I can really ever listen to post rock that much, or like just post metal all that much anymore. And then I heard this, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is amazing. But yeah, hands down, that's probably my favorite track. I don't know if you had some other thoughts to share on other stuff. I know we've only been through like the first 3, and we don't have to go into every track. There are only 6.
But it's one of those things where each track has their own little thing to it, where it's like, I kind of want to mention that. Like in track 4, Used to Die in My Hands, that's when they have like the violin and cello come in.
Yeah, that was a nice touch. I was really surprised by that as well.
It's always cool hearing those classical type of instruments blended in with, you know, guitars, and you have those cool electronic beats again.
Yeah, I really liked on that 4th track, when the strings come in, kind of like the violin, cello, when that comes in, I actually, the first few times I listened to that, I thought it was like actually somebody singing for like a split second, and I don't know, I wasn't expecting that instrument to really roll in, but I really enjoyed that with the it kind of has a bit of a moment of a crescendo as well. You kind of get, as you were saying, this little splotch of electronic drums again, and it erupts into this tremolo pick crescendo, kind of like that black metal shimmering wash of guitar, and it kind of creates this warm, this kind of ethereal atmosphere, and it feels very expansive, and it just feels very deep. And then, yeah, there's the way the violin or the strings, I always screw up with the violin versus cello and all that stuff. I'm not very competent with that stuff. Same. But, you know, the way it kind of comes in and is then followed up by this soaring guitar lead, kind of creating that crescendo again, and it kind of flows and then ebbs and then flows, and it has this really nice dynamic throughout. And it's also the longest track. It's almost 10 minutes, actually. Yeah. But, yeah, I really enjoyed that one as well. And then, you know, as we were talking a bit about this, the last track, I decomposed the song today. We don't have to go super in-depth into it, but that was...
You don't want to decompose the song?
No. Well, that song specifically was very... It kind of catches you off guard because it opens up with a blast beat, and you never really hear it like that. I mean, you hear some blast beats throughout, but the way it just kind of barrels into it and just goes, and it holds for like a straight minute, I think, and it just kind of plods away. It's just a very strange juxtaposition with kind of the beautiful post-metal, post-rock, you know, shoegaze feeling of it, but I really enjoy that entire dynamic. I appreciate what they're doing
It's
here.
almost like they're like, oh, we know you heard that blast beat in those last couple songs, but we want to make sure you actually heard the blast beats.
Right. Yeah, it's a nice really nice concatenation of sounds. And what makes this one a little different for me as well is the way that it's all mixed together. The instruments feel just like a little brighter, a little more melodic than some traditional Blackgaze bands that I tend to listen to. I don't know. I'd have to go like verify that 100% to make sure what I just said is like super accurate. But like the way the blast beats come in, like it doesn't have the visceralness you would expect from, say, a traditional, you know, like if you were to listen to black metal or Blackgaze, you know, it kind of has this.
It's like upbeat. It's kind beats.
Yeah. It doesn't have like that darkness or kind of like that grittiness to it. It's very it's almost soothing in a way, and even though it's upbeat and kind of, it's kind of like a more traditional like metal form of playing, it doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't appeal to that sensibility as much. It doesn't have that like kind of that ferocity you usually get, which I just find very interesting in the way it's kind of composed within the post-rock stuff.
Yeah, it's almost like if it's not paired with these harsh screams and I don't know, just heavy drums or something, it just sounds different. I don't know.
Yeah, and that could be what's going on here too, because since I almost forgot as we were talking about them that they don't have vocals, so it's one of those things that may make it a bit more palpable for some folks too, so you can kind of get a nice mix of some post rock, some post metal, and then some beautiful violining. There's also like some nice keyboard moments sprinkled throughout as well. Some nice piano melodies that come through, and I really enjoy this one. I was not expecting to like this one as much. As first listen, I wasn't really sure what to expect based on the first track. It to me it felt pretty. It seemed a little traditional in what I would expect from, say, a post-rock, but once the second and third track, especially when the third track gets going, it really hits a high, and it got me hooked pretty quick thereafter. So I definitely recommend folks check this one out, especially if you're into anything instrumental, and then ethereal atmospherics and such.
Yep. You've been listening to Voices from Corners Unknown, episode 14. And this was an interesting one. I enjoyed it. And yeah, feedback. We keep asking. I keep talking about feedback. Have we ever gotten feedback?
Not much. We've gotten a couple bites here and there, but we always appreciate folks letting us know what they think. Leave any suggestions on how we can improve this. I know it can get a little rambly here and there, but we enjoy doing this, and we hope you folks enjoy this as well. And please feel free to leave us suggestions if you think we've glazed over something, or if you want us to focus on maybe a particular genre. Feel free to let us know. Can't guarantee we're going to be able to do that, but we'd love to just keep mixing it up. It's kind of fun doing mishmashes of genres each episode. Kind of keeps me off guard. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
It makes for an interesting conversation. Makes it a little harder to concise my notes when I know we're going to be cramming together a bunch of different genres, but I think that's what keeps it interesting. And yeah, feel free. Let us know what you think. We prefer constructive criticism. If you want to rip us a new one, please feel free. Just word
roast
it. Just,
me.
feel free. Yeah, feel free to. Yeah, if you have any words of criticism, that's totally fine too. I'm always looking to improve. I don't know how you are, Connor, but I'm always up for listening to whatever folks have to say, and I will take anything that you have to say and consider it. I'll do any of that. So. Mm-hmm. Please feel free to leave constructive criticism, feedback, any of that.
Sam.